Over Afghanistan, the United States knows about it, clearly.
No plane could fly from Kunduz to Pakistan without getting shot down unless we let it happen. And we let it happen, and I think there's just no other way to explain it.
My take on it basically is the fact that there is some sort of a deal in place between the government of Pakistan and the United States.
Intrigued, Thompson looked deeper into Pakistan. His timeline showed Osama bin Laden was reportedly last seen in Pakistan after escaping from Tora Bora.
CBS News has exclusive information tonight.
But thanks to an in-depth investigation by CBS, he also learned bin Laden was in Pakistan on the eve of 9/11.
Bin Laden was spirited into this military hospital in Rawalpindi for kidney dialysis treatment. The military had him surrounded, says this hospital employee who also wanted his identity masked. They were saying that Osama bin Laden had to be watched carefully and looked after.
We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
To better understand the ties between bin Laden and Pakistan, Thompson followed a timeline thread that began with covert Pakistan involvement in the Soviet-Afghan War 2 decades ago. In 1979, in the midst of the Cold War, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Throughout the 80s, the Soviets battled the Mujahideen, a group of anti-Soviet fighters that included bin Laden. The Mujahideen were backed by the Central Intelligence Agency, who hoped to give the Soviets their own costly Vietnam-type war. Rather than fund the Mujahideen directly, the CIA covertly channeled money through the Pakistani intelligence agency, the ISI. The Washington Post has published some of the definitive accounts of the conflicts.
They helped create bin Laden and the roots of al-Qaeda during the Russian occupation of Afghanistan, when the American CIA and the intelligence services of Pakistan and Saudi Arabia created this group of people to fight the Russians in Afghanistan.
Billions of dollars from the CIA and the Saudis were passed through the ISI to support the war. The strategy worked, and the Soviets were defeated.
The Taliban are widely alleged to be the creation of Pakistan's military intelligence, the ISI. Experts say that explains the Taliban's swift military successes.
Emboldened by their victory and the influx of weapons and cash, the ISI helped to install the Taliban and deepen their ties to bin Laden and his terror network.
Because there's really no difference between an ISI training camp for terrorism and an al-Qaeda training camp for terrorism. You would have some people working for al-Qaeda and they would go out to an al-Qaeda mission, and you had other people working for the ISI and they would go off to Kashmir on one of their missions.
Thompson wondered if ISI involvement in terrorism included the attacks of 9/11.
We will give the Pakistani government a chance to cooperate and to participate as we hunt down those people who committed this unbelievable, despicable act on America.
What I am told by senior administration officials is the Pakistani government has promised to, quote, fully cooperate.
The dictator of Pakistan, General Musharraf, came forward.
Within days of the attacks, Pakistan was hailed as a major ally in the new war on terror. The White House seemed confident that al-Qaeda alone was behind 9/11.
Will you release publicly a white paper which links him and his organization to this attack to put people at ease?
We are hard at work bringing all the information together, intelligence information, law enforcement information, and I think in the near future we'll be able to put out a paper, a document that will describe quite clearly the evidence that we have.
No, I think that there was just a misinterpretation of the exact words the Secretary used on the Sunday shows. I'm not aware of anybody who said white paper, and the Secretary didn't say anything about a white paper yesterday.
You know, you're talking about actions in other parts of the world. And certainly you want the support of as many people around the world as possible. You know, I guess It seems as though you're asking everyone to trust you.
I mean, logic tells you they couldn't have done it alone. This was a sophisticated plot.
Bin Laden was not capable of doing this by himself and his group. So who was capable? Obviously, there has to be much more of an investigation in Pakistan.
But on October 1st, the FBI discovered evidence linking the alleged hijackers and al-Qaeda by following a money trail that ended at Mohammed Atta in Florida.
Suspected hijacker Mohammed Atta received wire transfers via Pakistan and then distributed the cash via money orders bought here in Florida. A senior law enforcement source tells CNN the man sending the money to Atta is believed to be Ahmed Umar Saeed Sheikh.
He reportedly is controlling certain aspects of the financial transactions of the al-Qaeda network.
Once a standout student at the London School of Economics, the British-born son of Pakistani parents speaks 5 languages.
The story made news in every major newspaper. With 9/11 paymaster identified as an alleged al-Qaeda moneyman, it seemed that the U.S. finally had its proof that al-Qaeda was involved. The U.S. war on terror could now move ahead. But what most of his post-9/11 reports about Omar Saeed Sheikh had failed to mention was that at the same time Sheikh dropped out of the London School of Economics to presumably join al-Qaeda. He had also joined the ISI.
Arresting officer A.K. Jain says, under questioning, Omar Sheikh admitted he was supported by the Pakistan government's intelligence service, the ISI.
He had told me that.
He admitted to you?
Oh, yes.
And after his release, it was very clear that he was provided protection and safe haven in Pakistan with the direct support, with the knowledge, and obviously with the connivance of the Pakistani intelligence.
Only 2 days after the invasion of Afghanistan, the Times of India reported the FBI discovered credible evidence that $100,000 was wired to alleged hijacker Mohammed Atta by 9/11 paymaster Omar Saeed Sheikh on the orders of the ISI director, Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmed.
Had that been the head of the Iraqi intelligence agency, do you think we would have heard of it?
You have to understand that Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmed was a key player.
William Pepper is an international lawyer and consultant to the Pakistani government.
Indian state intelligence came upon this transfer. It was then that the Times of India was able to get this information, and the FBI got involved in this whole situation because this was now becoming very public as a result of the Indian investigation.
Though the evidence was never publicly disclosed, Indian intelligence claimed that the FBI had privately confirmed the story to them, and it soon made every major Indian newspaper. In the U.S., only a single news outlet even mentioned the allegation. The information was reported as an internet-only story on the editorial section of the Wall Street Journal website.
It had this cutesy title, but it contained this completely explosive information.
After the Times of India story broke, paymaster Omar Saeed Sheikh was no longer the apparent proof that al-Qaeda was the sole sponsor of the attacks. Instead, Saeed Sheikh, acting on the orders of the ISI, appeared to be the smoking gun of Pakistani involvement in 9/11.
And instantly, within that day, basically, Saeed Sheikh becomes persona non grata. And then a whole bunch of other people are put forth as the paymaster.
Over the next several months, authorities began confusing the news media with a bewildering variety of alternate names for the paymaster, each sounding similar to Omar Saeed Sheikh.
No, it's this guy. No, it's this guy. They keep changing the story about who the guy is, and it becomes hard to keep track.
By the one-year anniversary of 9/11, Newsweek had concluded that the paymaster remains almost a total mystery. The 9/11 Commission would ultimately conclude that the question of who financed the attacks is of little practical significance.
And in my opinion, it seems to be a bunch of smoke and mirrors to try to really hide the fact that there's money coming from the ISI going to the hijackers.
If we were really going after the people who sponsored al-Qaeda, wouldn't we be bombing Pakistan?
Are we better off in Pakistan or in Iraq in terms of beating terrorism? I would say to you, if you'd ask me that question, I would say, no question. Let's forget about Iraq and let's focus on Pakistan.
There is no reason for the administration to continue to shield make-believe allies who are supporting, either directly or indirectly, terrorists whose goal is to kill Americans.
And do you think that will ever become public? Which countries are talking about?
It'll become public at some point when it's turned over to the archives, but that's 20 or 30 years from now. We need to have this information now because it's relevant to the threat that the people of the United States are facing today.
And here the story took another unexpected turn. Several top news sources had all reported that the Pakistani ISI director had actually been in Washington for a rare visit during the week of September 11th.
Yes. Are you aware of the reports at the time that ISI chief was in Washington on September 11 and on September 10th, $100,000 was wired from Pakistan to these groups here in this area? And why he was here? Was meeting with you or anybody in the administration?
I have not seen that report, and he was certainly not meeting with me. Yes?
LA Weekly reported that on the very evening of September 11th, U.S. State Department officials began negotiating the terms of the U.S.-Pakistani partnership with ISI Director Mahmoud Ahmed, the very man who was alleged to have ordered the wire transfer to Muhammad Atta. The talks continued over the next several days before the Lieutenant General returned to Pakistan on September 14th. But an undercover operative named Randy Glass says he can prove that USA officials knew about the ISI role in 9/11, even as they chose to partner with Pakistan. The revelation came in yet another largely overlooked story, this one reported by Dateline NBC.
Con man turned undercover operative Randy Glass was infiltrating a terrorist arms buying network layer by layer.
Former conman Glass was part of a 1999 government sting called Operation Diamondback, a 2.5-year investigation by the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
On July 22, 1999, Glass flew to New York for a meeting here at the trendy Tribeca Grill. It was dinner for 4. Glass, his first contact, Dia Moishan, the Jersey City businessman Mike Malik, and the mystery man, R.G. Abbas.
You know who supplies him with money? Who? Yeah.
Glass was wearing a wire. Mixed in with the dinner crowd were agents from the FBI's terrorism task force.
Basically, what he told me was they were interested in purchasing a large amount of sophisticated weapon systems. And who was Abbas representing in this? Abbas was represented to me as being an ISI agent.
And this is where the stakes really get high, because if Abbas was telling the truth, Randy Glass and the feds were about to cut an illegal weapons deal with a Pakistani intelligence operative linked to terrorists.
The story of Randy Glass never seemed to quite catch on. If you ask most people, have you heard about this? Have you heard about Randy Glass? They haven't heard about it.
Earlier today,
perhaps the story failed to spark the public imagination because the most dramatic revelation ended up on Dateline's cutting room floor.
I had been threatened by FBI